For centuries, we have dreamed of being able to fly using our own power. The dream was almost forgotten after engine-powered flight began, until 1959, when British industrialist Henry Kramer gave the dream priority by offering a prize for the first sustained, controlled, human-powered flight. 18 years later, August 23, 1977, the prize was won by the GossamerCondor, a unique aircraft piloted and powered by Brian Allen and developed by a team led by Dr. Paul McCready of AeroVironment Incorporated. The development of the GossamerCondor took a year and was a friends and family affair. The earliest version demonstrated the validity of the team's design approach, a huge, featherweight, slow-flying aircraft.
Can you read the airspeed? Okay, sock it to it.
It's twisted a bit. Thank you, sir.
Let's get up about 3 feet. Okay. 35.
Let's go left.
Stop pedaling! Stop pedaling! Full left! You go, Daddy. Oh! The weight on. Oh, yeah. Hold it up, Ava.
Get up.
The builders learned from both crashes and computer programs, and they made many changes to create the final airplane. With a 96-foot wingspan and weighing only 70 pounds.
Where are the nails, Bill?
6 minutes and 2 turns later, the only obstacle left is the 10-foot finish pole. On his prize-winning flight, Brian Allen landed with the words, "We did it," a tribute to the teamwork that made the GossamerCondor fly into aviation history. The prize flight required Brian Allen's extraordinary flight skill and stamina. Others helped as test pilots, and after the prize event, a 60-year-old grandmother, an astronaut, a 10-year-old youngster, and several friends all had the thrill of flying using only the power of their own muscles. The slow, fragile GossamerCondor was impractical, but of great value in changing thinking and our expectations about how far vehicle efficiency could be pushed. It inspired new efforts, like the Gossamer Albatross, again designed by Paul McCready and his associates at AeroVironment, and pedaled by Brian Allen for almost 2 hours across the English Channel. Later, the Solar Challenger flew at 11,000 feet from Paris to England, powered by the sun. Then the Pathfinder extended solar-powered flight to over 50,000 feet into the stratosphere. All were designed by the AeroVironment teams. The GossamerCondor not only achieved an age-old dream, it has helped to broaden the realm of possibilities for dreamers today and tomorrow.
With all the advancements that have been made in air and now space travel, the one thing man had never done in the air was the first thing he had wanted to do, fly under his own power. There's a Greek myth about man-powered flight that's at least 4,000 years old. In 1959, British industrialist Henry Kramer established a cash prize for the first man-powered flight around a specific course. The Kremer course required that the man-powered plane fly a figure eight around two markers a half-mile apart. Thus, the flight would be 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles long. Additionally, at the start and finish of the flight, the plane would have to clear a 10-foot-high bar. There was no time or speed requirement. Men have gone broke trying to fly the Kremer course and claimed the prize, 50,000 pounds, or nowadays about $85,000. The latest attempt was 17 days ago at a small airport 12 miles from Bakersfield, California. It is just after sunrise at Shafter Airport. On this day, August 22nd, a weird-looking plane named the GossamerCondor will try to win the Kremer Prize by flying the figure-eight course powered by one man. The man is 24-year-old Brian Allen, a bicycling and hang-gliding enthusiast. Vern Oldershaw, a retired postal employee, had done the structural work on the GossamerCondor, and Peter Lissaman had used computers to design the plane's wings. But Paul McCready had the idea and drew the basic design. It is his plane. Built of aluminum, piano wire, balsa wood, glue, and mylar sheets, the GossamerCondor weighs just 70 pounds. It has a 97-foot wingspan, and it looks as if it is built backward. The tail or stabilizer, what the crew calls the canard, is in front, and the propeller is in back. But it could win the Kremer Prize.
Flying this machine is remarkably easy. Just the actual control inputs that you have to give to it, I think, is probably just about the easiest machine to fly ever made.
Before 7 a.m., Allen pedaled his way to liftoff.
Now, flying around the Kremer course is a whole other kettle of fish, so to speak, in that the control movements are easy because of the fact that you're going very slowly and you have a really great visual reference of the canard out in front. You can see immediately what the plane is doing when you give it a control input. But the effort required to get around the Kremer course is pretty well a total exhaustion sort of thing. In straight flight, it's about like riding a bicycle at 25 or 26 miles an hour. Not all that difficult, but then you have to remember that the takeoff is a higher output, and the turns require more energy, and the climbing requires more energy. So the whole thing averages out to be difficult, definitely not impossible.
On this day, it was impossible. Allen flew the GossamerCondor around the full course. He did not clear the 10-foot bar at the finish. On this flight, the GossamerCondor set an endurance record, more than 8 minutes aloft. But that was not the record they wanted.
You're very close. Shit, you guys gotta tell me. Because I couldn't see the pole, man.
I know.
And everybody was yelling up 1, 2, 3, 4.
Come on.
And I didn't know where it was, man.
I know.
Did I make it?
Bill, did he make it?
Not quite.
No, not quite. No. Come on, let's get out. Get out.
But I could have... You guys said stop. I could have gone a little higher, man.
Okay. Come on. Can you get out?
But the flight did prove what everyone wanted to know. The GossamerCondor could fly the 1.25 mile course, powered only by legs pedaling a bicycle gear. And if Allen could nurse just 2 or 3 feet more altitude at the end of the flight, the GossamerCondor would be the first man-powered plane to beat the Kremer course.
I think we need to get
Breakfast came after the flight. McCready wanted the flights made in the early morning when there was no wind, so the crew camped out at Shafter Airport. The late breakfast helped keep Allen's flight weight down to 135 pounds. No one, not even McCready, knows how many times the GossamerCondor or one of its parts was redesigned, rebuilt, or changed in some way. But McCready got the design idea 1 year ago. Since then, he and his team have been working on it. For one man to be able to power it, the plane had to be light, But to fly the figure 8, it had to have control and stability. What it looked like did not matter. The only rules were it could not be lighter than air, and it could not use stored energy. While modern aviation had gone from the single-engine prop plane to the jet supersonic transport, no one had been able to design, build, and fly a man-powered aircraft over the 1.25 mile figure-8 course. But this design was different. The canard in front provided lift control. A handle in the cockpit controlled the altitude and turning flaps. But the flaps on the canard were not enough to make figure-8 turns. Another hand control in the cockpit warped the wing, twisting it enough to help the plane bank through the turns. The engine was Alan's thigh muscles, turning what was essentially a very long bicycle chain. A single hose brought in air to cool him. By keeping a simple gear ratio, the speed would be slow enough. The slower the speed, the less the air resistance, and, in theory, the longer the flight. Lightweight and long wings would provide the lift, and the plane would fly the course. In theory. The simple design made repairs easy, and on the morning of August 23rd, Paul McCready was making last-minute tape patches. The Gossamer Condor was to try again. But even as Alan was putting on his bicycling shoes and the Condor was being readied, McCready decided on his final design change. He cut a hole in the front of the cockpit to let air blow in on Alan's legs. It delayed the start of the flight. The previous attempts had all started before 7 o'clock, but on this flight, Alan lifted the Gossamer Condor off the ground at exactly 7:30. It easily cleared the beginning 10-foot bar. Under the rules, the plane does not have to maintain a 10-foot altitude, just clear the 10-foot bar at the start and finish. Alan did most of the flight 2 or 3 feet off the ground. Took the Gossamer Condor through the figure 8 as he had the day before. The final 10-foot bar was all that remained. The Gossamer Condor flew over the T-bar with room to spare, exactly 6 minutes, 22.5 seconds after it first crossed the bar, and touched down exactly 7 minutes, 22.5 seconds after it had taken off. Years after the Kremer Prize for man-powered flight was established, a team in California filed a claim to it. All of the documents about the flight, the sworn statements and such, have been sent to the Royal Aeronautical Society in England. It controls the Kremer Prize, and until it rules on the flight, the $85,000 will not be awarded. Of course, there is a more immediate question. What practical application does this man-powered flight have? We hate that kind of question.
Long a great moat guarding Britain, the English Channel remains one of the world's most treacherous crossings. For over 4,000 years, it has balked many a challenger, generals, athletes, inventors, and plain lunatics. Representing the best and the worst in human ingenuity, they have launched or landed at the Dover Cliffs by boat, balloon, barrel, and bathtub. Now, a new challenger is ready. Resembling some prehistoric insect, immense, yet so light a breath of air can overturn it. This fragile craft will attempt the Channel flight, powered only by the legs of its pilot. Though others have contributed, its design is largely the work of one man, Dr. Paul McCready, an intense, taciturn scientist whose mind is filled with the formulas of aircraft wakes, the turning radius of hawks, the turbulence of clouds. Once the soaring champion of the world, it's said he can read the invisible air. But it's Brian Allen, the slim, sometimes unkempt biology graduate from an upstate California college, upon whose stamina and will the final triumph or failure of the flight will depend.
Stop.
First to make a man-powered flight over a mile-long figure-8 course, Brian now faces a challenge vastly more difficult: the 22-mile crossing of the English Channel. 2 o'clock in the morning of June 12, the team is at work preparing the Albatross. This time each control, each gear, each cable is checked again and again. The wing cleaned of condensation, which can add extra pounds to the plane's critical weight. Across the night-bound channel, flashes from the Cap Grenet lighthouse 22 miles away remind them of the distance they have yet to cross. Each man knows that one oversight, no matter how small, can spell failure for all. At 4 o'clock, in the pale light of an English dawn, the Albatross stands ready. But small wind gusts tumbling down the cliffs cause a risky turbulence. Offshore, the flotilla carrying crew and observers stands by. With guards posted around the Albatross to warn off press and bystanders, sometimes blundering into its supporting cables, Brian at last prepares for the final lap in their long journey.
Would you go channel 10 and stand by?
As the wind subsides to less than 2 miles per hour, Brian receives clearance over the radio to take off when ready.
Okay, Brian, Zodiacs are in position. Anytime you feel it's good, go ahead.
Okay, there's a bit of a lull now, so I'm going to go right now.
Roger.
It is 5:51 a.m.
Brian, this is Sam. Does it feel any different over water?
Yeah, there's a pretty definite interlinking between the water and the air.
Albatross from control. Be sure to follow us by looking a little bit out your right window. That keeps you a little more behind us and definitely not in our wake. Clear.
Yeah, Albatross, roger that, clear.
At a ground speed of nearly 10 miles per hour, closely attended by his teammates and Zodiacs off each wing, he follows a course southeast to the French coast at Cap Grenet.
Coast Guard from Tartanjam, over.
Golf Romeo, X-ray Romeo, this is Dover Coast Guard.
We wonder if you see us about 5 miles southeast of Folkestone on the radar.
Roger, sir. Yes, we hold you on radar at this time. This is Dover Coast Guard, out.
But now, approaching midpoint, Brian begins to encounter increasing headwinds.
It appears that the fuselage is starting to steam up a little bit. Does it look like it's going to be any sort of a problem for you?
I think it will be a problem now.
Zodiac 1, this is Dover Coast Guard. Come right, 2230, 4 miles to run.
At an hour and 15 minutes, barely at midpoint, Brian encounters more turbulence and headwinds of 4 miles per hour. Though he still pedals at a steady 75 revolutions per minute, his decreasing ground speed means that the estimated 2-hour flight time is no longer possible. In growing fatigue, he falls lower and lower, sometimes mere inches above the swell.
Altitude, line 5, get up.
Sam from control, what do you estimate Brian's condition?
He's tired, but he might be able to hang on. I don't think he wants to quit.
Against the relentless headwind, the Albatross's ground speed has been cut to approximately 7 miles an hour. For Brian, the flight has become a grinding ordeal. After an hour and 45 minutes, still more than 7 miles from France, he signals defeat. He can go no farther. He must be towed the rest of the way. Obediently, one of the Zodiacs closes in, ready to attach a fishing rod to the fuselage for the tow. But as Brian struggles upward to allow the Zodiac to come underneath, he suddenly waves off his rescuers. At 15 feet, he has found less turbulence, decides to push on.
Altitude more like 10 now. Great. Hold it in there. Doing great, Brian. You're looking good, Brian. You're looking good. Hang in there, good buddy. It's downhill from here.
Numbly, Brian pedals on, no longer counting time. His flight instruments no longer function, and his water supply is exhausted. When at last he sights the French coast through the haze, his heart sinks. It is still 3 miles away. For Brian, each moment now has become a victory. Dehydrated, suffering severe leg cramps, his judgment has begun to waver. Briefly, he considers crashing on the rocky point. Instead, he fights to save the Albatross from the turbulence that claws at it and nearly wrecks it a few feet offshore. Slowly, at last, it is done.
Well done.
Where's Brian?
Keep away. Come on, keep away from these cables. What? Cable! Oh, keep away from these cables. Sir.
Brian, right, Brian, grab this.
Keep away from the cables.
Jack, can you give it to him because the top's coming?
Take it easy. Where's Ingrid? Okay, all right. You keep away from these cables.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Let's back him up, Dave. But do you view yourself as a historical figure?
Right now I view myself as pretty tired.
Brian Allen, Paul McCready, and all their talented team have won their triumph. But it's also ours. Through them, we have fulfilled an ancient dream. On man's own strength, we too have climbed the sky.
An impossible dream is about to come true. An airplane called Solar Challenger will fly the English Channel powered by nothing but sunshine. It took vision and hard work and a whole new technology to get it off the ground. It took DuPont Kevlar, Mylar, Delrin, and Nomex. But these ultralight, ultra-strong DuPont materials made more than a dream come true. They're helping to launch America's first fuel-efficient jets. DuPont, makers of better things for better living.
It's been a record-setting week for the crew of the Solar Challenger, the world's first aircraft powered entirely by the sun. Pilots Steve Potacek and Janice Brown put the Challenger through a rigorous test in preparations for a planned flight from Paris to London for the middle of June. Potacek set a record for endurance in the flight, 8 hours and 19 minutes, and fellow solar pilot Janice Brown set the record for the highest flight, an altitude of 14,300 feet. Both pilots are quite pleased with the performance of the aircraft.
There's a few minor details of the airplane we need to work out. The airplane's a little bit out of rig. We can change that easily. But everything else basically seemed to perform pretty well.
Well, it sure proves that the plane can get up there and fly, and it felt more solid than ever, and I'm more confident than ever.
The Solar Challenger is the latest creation by aviation wizard Paul McCready, who built the first aircraft powered by human energy alone. The Solar Challenger and its 16,000 solar collectors will be crated up for the flight to Paris, where it's expected to set another world record. Larry Rice for ABC News in Bakersfield, California.